Welcome to the Dream Life is Real Life podcast with your host, Hannah Hermanson, bringing you real life stories of people who realized their dreams to educate and inspire you to create your legacy of abundance now.
Welcome back. Today's guest is Michele Williams. Michele is sought after for her ability to easily explain complex business principles and processes in a simple, straightforward way. She began her career in financial software design before starting her first company in 2000, providing soft furnishings for the home industry. With a varied background in working in small, medium, and large businesses, Michele has a great grasp on the scalability factors that are essential to growing a business. As a certified profit-first professional, Michele strives to help creative business owners focus on the financial health and profitability of their companies. She believes that each choice is a step towards or away from profitability. Those who work with her understand the correlation between every decision and their own profitability. Pricing, profits, process, and procedures are important, but can be difficult for the creative entrepreneur to implement. Michele has proven strategies and mindsets to overcome these obstacles, and she can give every business owner a healthy dose of confidence along the way. Oh, we so need you, Michele. I am glad you're here.
Well, I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me, Hannah.
Yeah, I mean, just, reading a little bit about your work and just that bio, I think this is such critical work and a conversation this audience is dying for, right? How to be really strategic and forward thinking when it comes to, not just what feels good or what's fun in our business, but making profitable choices.
Yes. And I know that everybody needs it because I needed it, right? And most of us teach, educate, and share not only from what we got right, but what we got wrong. And I find what's interesting is I had a background in a lot of this, knew it, and still got it wrong because I wasn't being intentional about it. And so, I think I heard one time, I can't remember who said it, so I certainly didn't make it up, but it said, you get what you inspect, not what you expect.
Ooh.
And yeah, right. And so really being focused and intentional and inspecting. Like today, one of my clients made a comment about their marketing wasn't working. And I was like, well, how do you know? Did you go to Google Analytics? How do you know that it wasn't a driver? And they're like, oh, well, I didn't even look. So they were just making assumptions without looking because they didn't know where to look. And I think that's what's important is as we are creating these businesses to do what we love, to make the impact that we want to make, we also have to be, making sure that we have some checkpoints along the way, because it doesn't do us any good to have a business that makes awesome impact and brings home no money. Because at some point that impact is going to become drudgery. We're going to lose our passion. We're going to be frustrated because we have to be compensated.
Absolutely. And I think the other piece that you're speaking to is we can easily get into that victim mentality. Like, it's not working. It's not happening for me. And that's a lot harder to take ownership of if there's no place to put your finger on. So I definitely want to get into a lot of the strategies and the mindset and the things that you help business owners do today. But how did you get here? What motivated you to start your business back in 2000?
Yeah.
And by the way, everything was supposed to blow up. I remember New Year's Eve 2000, will the phone work?
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that actually was part of the impetus for all of my, I guess, almost kicking me in the pants to have me do it all. So to go back a few years, it's a few for me, it's a lot for some. But so I started my career working for Dun & Bradstreet doing software for financial accounting. So accounts payable, general ledger, purchasing. So I started off doing support for that, doing coding. Then I moved into a development organization and was actually the development manager that built a project accounting system. So think of what we might use for QuickBooks and keeping up with everything, but on a really huge scale. Okay. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I came home to raise my children in late 98. And in 99, my husband and I both had been in IT, which to your point, the world was supposed to end at the beginning of 2000, because we didn't know if it was going to roll over or all the computer, is everything going to break down? I mean, it literally was a scary time. And a lot of companies started laying people off at the end of 99 because they didn't know what they were going to do. And my husband got hit with that. So now we're both sitting at home looking at each other. And so I had really been thinking, okay, what can I do? What kind of business can I start? It had been, mulling around for a while. Long story short, I started the business in January of 2000 because somebody said to me, hey, I would love to have something you've done. So they saw a talent and some window coverings and bedding and all these things that I'd made for my home. And they said, pretty much, if you'll do that for me, I'll pay you. And I said, okay. And my goal at the time, Hannah, was really just to continue to be home, raise my children, not go back into corporate. That was what I didn't want to go back into corporate with the kids so little. And just knowing that, the stress that created in our family life. So I really wanted a slower pace, but I wanted to make enough money that I could cover the mortgage and a couple of the bills if my husband's job went back and forth, because we were still so crazy, as a country with what we were going to do about the data processing pieces. So long story short, that's how it started. It kind of was by plan, by accident. So I'd been thinking about it, kind of getting ready for it. Somebody rang my doorbell and it started, but I had no business plan. I had no marketing strategy. I literally did the work that came and rang my doorbell. And then I moved and did more work all around my neighborhood. And a couple of years in, realized, okay, I need to look at the financials. And even though I had great sales, by the time I took out all of the cost of goods and all of the expenses for the company, I really wasn't making anything. And that was my first eye opener.
Wow. Okay. First of all, I love that these principles can still be applied today. So this idea of like taking the work that comes to you, hanging out in your neighborhood, your warm market now, and getting feedback from like, what are the things they're asking me for? What is it that seems to keep being a problem or keep literally knocking on my door? And I think today it's really sexy, or it seems simple to just, put out a Facebook ad or start running around the internet looking for like, I don't know, opportunity, I guess. And so I love that you took what was presented to you and decided, okay, I can lean into what's literally happening in my neighborhood.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it was, it's interesting. Back then, we didn't have the internet quite. We had an internet, but not like it is today, right? It was not as robust. We didn't have Pinterest. We didn't have Instagram. Facebook wasn't there that we were using. None of that was there. So we had to lean into our local community. But what was so interesting about that was that's when you start to realize how connected people are. And understanding that those connections mean life for a business. We now have moved those connections into a much more social media type connection. But, back in the day, 19 years ago, my neighbor, I would work in her home, do the interior design. She would tell her mother, she would tell her aunt, she would tell her sister, and then I would be called. And then they would tell a friend. It was like the Fabergé, and tell a friend and tell a friend. You know what I mean? I just kept going out. And it was all about that warm lead and that person doing a personal introduction. And I think we've missed a lot of that today. I think we try to jump over it and around it. I heard another great quote the other day. It said that success is reached by a staircase, not by an elevator.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I love that because it's a reminder that it's step by step by step by step to get to the top. And we can't shortcut some of these things. I'm not saying there aren't some things that we can't take some leaps on, but we can't shortcut it all. Like there's no really fast way just to the top.
Right. And like that, I think speaks to this like game of automation too. Like people come to me with no business model and they're like, all right, I just want like an evergreen course and I just want it to be running while I'm on the beach. And it's like, have you ever put your foot on a step? Like that kind of idea, that like in order to have those machines working for you, you have to basically understand the staircase.
And there is a lot of work to have those machines. I mean, yes. I've got automation and I'm telling you, it's expensive. And it's a lot of work, a lot of planning, and a lot of strategy that then allows you to sit on the beach.
Yeah.
But it can be done, and it's a beautiful thing.
Right. And like I would say, what a time to be alive. We do have a lot of these tools, but the basics still matter. So now today, let's just fast forward a little bit to you're helping other business owners take strategic perspectives on the work that they're doing, help them figure out from their feedback mechanisms what's working and what's not working.
Yes.
So a question since I knew we were going to talk, I've really been curious about is, how do our choices directly impact our profitability? Because I know it's not just what Facebook ad you put out or the title of your course. Like, I've been getting this feedback that like my morning routine and what I choose to do for self-care impacts my profitability. So I'd love to hear you just speak to how our choices impact our profitability.
Sure. So there's a long answer, and that is, of course, I have a podcast called Profit is a Choice, and it talks about all of these different things. Like, so for example, here's what I mean by that. As the owners of our company, it's like with any goal, every step we take moves us towards the goal or away from the goal. There's nowhere else to go. We're going towards where we said we wanted to be or away from it. And so when we are not inspecting, we are not being intentional about what we do. Let's use your morning routine for example. I just did a podcast with my trainer, and we talked about, if I'm not taking care of my physical body, my core, right? Because I sit a lot in front of a computer like you, doing podcasting, doing coaching, doing events, and talking to people. And if I am not taking care of my body's core while I sit here really engaging every muscle, then I am actually, screwing up my back, my knees, everything by sitting. And so when you think about that, if we're not doing the same thing for our business, if I'm not taking care of myself, then this is a bedraggled me that's coming into work. This is a me coming into work that aches, that hurts, that's not focused, that needs to Advil to get through the day. That is not the best me that can really get the work done. Move forward. Let's say that you have an employee. I'm getting a lot of employee issues right now with my clients, and they are getting employees that don't want to work, or employees that have anger issues and don't know how to manage their self-control, or that are doing all these crazy things. They've been going along great. Well, if we don't stop and deal with that and address that, our profitability is going to take a hit, because that employee is going to interact with either another employee and create havoc in the workplace. So now we've got this tension that we're walking into, or that employee is going to one day blow up with a client or with a vendor, and that's going to impact our business. And so just thinking about, even all the way down to, how am I buying bottled water, or do I buy, something that filters the water over here? All of those things are spending money, and the money is sometimes spent in time and energy, but nonetheless, it is a currency that impacts our profitability.
Yes, absolutely. So my type A brain is just like, I'm totally with you. I get what you're saying. So how do I take real ownership of all of my decisions? Because it seems like, sitting at my computer, like that wouldn't be like a conscious decision that I would be aware of. So how can I just take ownership of all my choices, I guess?
Yeah. So I think, and I love that question, Hannah, because one of the first things that I tell somebody before I'm even willing to work with them in any capacity is, you have to come in and tell me that you own everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And if you cannot come in and tell me, as the owner of that company, that every single issue is owned by you, regardless of whether it was done by a vendor that you interacted with, a client you interacted with, an employee or a subcontractor, if anything happened under the umbrella of the business that you own, you have to tell me that you own it.
Yeah.
And if they're not willing to do that, number one, they're not ready for me to work with them. And let's talk about why that's so important. And here's just a real easy way to understand it. First of all, and I use this analogy a lot, if I can't stand the color of my my neighbor's house, I can't do much about it except block my view and maybe complain that I don't like that color. But if I don't like the color of my own house, I can go hire painters, I can go choose new colors, and I can affect the change that I want. So owning everything is not a bad thing. It actually is an empowering idea and mindset, because it says I get to make every change to get me closer to where I want to be. So that's huge. I mean, that could be like a whole hour of conversation right there, right? What does it mean to own? And it means to say, no matter what happens, it's mine. The buck stops with me. And so then I get to ask myself, okay, do I like where I'm going? Do I like how this is working out? Great. So I can keep doing it. What is a sticking point? What don't I like? What is a challenge? And then if we even think about physically, like for me, my body hurts so bad from sitting that I knew it was affecting my production because I didn't want to sit and talk to anybody. Not because I didn't want to talk to them, but because I didn't want to sit down. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to move. I needed something. And so for a while, I just kept pushing through. I think that's what we do in business is we just push through that bad client. We just push through that bad employee interaction. We just push through those physical aches and pains instead of stopping to go, okay, wait a minute. What's happening here? Do I own it? Can I affect change? What could the change look like? And what would be the outcome on the other side? And then doing something about it. And that could be your marketing. That could be your employees, your client expectations. Just knowing that you own it.
Yes.
It's like, okay, so now what are we going to do?
Right. Yeah, no, I love it. It's aligned with this assignment that I give all of my clients, which is I want you to act as if for the next week or for however long this exercise needs to last, you are 100% responsible for everything in your life. And most of that is just to help them see that like, oh, like instead of blaming or complaining or thinking it's not going to work, I'm forced to innovate. And so we're totally on the same wavelength. I was just thinking about maybe the choices, like every choice we make, like some of them aren't conscious.
That's
However,
right.
like you have the option to bring them into your awareness, right? It's again, just, like, wow, responsibility is just massive in this
It is.
conversation.
I think and I love that because we are 100% responsible, right? For us, for our choices and our actions. So I'll tell you, when people come to me, here's the big complaint that drives them my direction. And it sounds something like this. I am working my rear end off. I am doing all of these things. I'm bringing in an income, but I'm not making the money I think I should make. I'm not being paid like I think I should be paid. That's like this conversation. And it doesn't matter if they are a newer company with total sales of 100,000 or under, or if they're a $3 or $4 million company. I've got them all, and they're saying that's the exact thing they all say. I'm working too hard and not making enough money for everything that I'm putting in and all that I'm risking. And so they want me to look at their financial documents. So look at my profit and loss or income statement. Look at my balance sheet. Help me out. And my conversation with them is this. Everything in your business needs to be put on the table if I'm going to help you. And they're like, well, I just want you to help with financials. And the truth of the matter is, Hannah, those financial documents, that's not the decision. Those are just the output of every decision we've made, right?
But yes, my accountant says that your ins and outs, that's just a story. Like that just is showing you it's like a symptom, right? It's not what's actually causing. Yes.
That's right. And so what I say to them is, okay, show me your financials. Let's look at them. And they literally are just, an amalgamation of every decision and choice you've made. Yeah. So if you don't like the numbers that are showing up, we need to make different choices and decisions. But I need to know that you're willing to put everything on the table to do it. And so, for example, go back to our bodies. If we have a massive headache and we don't feel good and we go into a sales process, you tell me how that sales is going to be as compared to one where we feel like we're on our A game. It's going to be different. Mm-hmm. So if we're having chronic headaches and we're not managing it, it's going to show up. If, our marketing is not to our ideal client, we're kind of doing like this spray of marketing. Well, we're going to pay a lot of money to get a very small amount of conversions, and that's going to show up. And so it's literally walking through every line, every decision, every process, every system, and asking, is it working for us or working against us? Where might it be broken? Or where might it just need a small tweak? Sometimes, Hannah, it's not this big shifting change we have to make. It's a 1 degree move to the left or to the right that impacts a huge change as you go through the year, right? It's a small thing sometimes. And we tend to ignore the small things thinking it's got to be this big thing.
Yep.
It's just not the case.
And I just need to pivot. I just need to rebrand, and I just need a day off, and I'm just going to talk to a whole new audience, and I'm going to redo my website.
Right.
But that's
We
kind
start
of
grasping at these big things when it can be. I'll give you a prime example. Sometimes it's a word. Like on my website years ago, I had a certain word, and that word was consulting. Okay, granted, my company name is Scarlet Thread Consulting. But when it said that I did consulting, it was interesting. When I looked at my client base and the clients I was working with, the ones that came to me under a consulting agreement, it was the horrible experiences. Like I didn't want to do the work. The ones that came to me under coaching loved it. And I thought, what's the difference? For some reason, the people that came to me under the consulting thought they could dump everything in my lap, hold their hands up, and not own it. But the ones that came to me, and I'm not saying this is true for everybody, but the ones that came to me under the coaching with a consultative nature, man, they owned it and they were working and they were doing it. And I realized quickly I needed to shift one word.
1 degree. Yep.
1 degree. And it changed. I had to just tweak that message and it changed. It changed who came to me, how they came to me, their ownership of the problem, how they saw me as their guide to get where they wanted to go. You know what I mean? It put them in the owner's position. And, I just want to share that because it's not, like you said, throwing out the whole thing and starting over.
Yep. Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And I think that's a really relevant example. And so this might, we just have a few more minutes here, but when you realize that for yourself, that it was that word, or I guess, how did you realize it was that word? Was it through reflection? Was it through feedback? Was it a survey? What do you think helped you reveal that it was that 1 degree that was going to make a big difference? And then how could maybe listeners identify where they might have a 1 degree adjustment that they need to make?
So for me, I started noticing, and this is what I teach my clients. If a client calls you, right, or a vendor or anybody, and your stomach drops and you get sweaty palms, you feel like you're going to be ill and you're irritated, whatever the feeling is, it's not a joyous, exciting feeling. You need to take note of that because there is something going on physiologically that is telling you that this is not a good fit. And I started noticing that when 2 of my clients would call me, that I almost didn't want to answer. I was fearful of opening their emails. It's like I just didn't even want to know what they had to say. And it was so different, Hannah, because the rest of my clients, I had 15 other clients that were one-to-one. I couldn't wait to talk to them. I couldn't wait. And so over time, it was like you push through. And then all of a sudden you think, wait a minute. What is happening? Why do I feel this way? And so then I started taking these 2 clients that gave me this reaction and trying to figure out what they had in common, because it wasn't the work and it wasn't the questions. So what was it? And that's when I figured out that they were both putting everything in my lap. They weren't owning it. They didn't want to do the work. They weren't rolling up their sleeves and getting dirty in their own business. And that was the aha for me was, okay, wait a minute, they're coming under the term consultant. I didn't even ask anybody else. I just took the word consultant off and said to everybody else, I coach with a consultative approach so that every other person that came in was cool with that. So mine was really a discovery because I physically felt ill, angry, and frustrated when the call came in. And I knew that wasn't healthy. And I knew that meant something about them or our interaction or our agreement or whatever was not my ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that those physical feelings of sitting all day, this cannot be good for me. And I wanted to ask you that because this is actually something that comes up a lot in my work is what is my title? Am I a mentor? Am I a coach, a consultant? And a lot of times my clients aren't to that point where they're having just these gut reactions. And so another way that we've done it is just listing out the clients that you do love. What do you love about them? What do you love about the conversations you've had recently? How do they address you? And even doing surveys, because sometimes we're not in tune enough. And I do really think that this conversation about what you title yourself will attract very different people and very different emotions. So thanks for going there with us. That was great.
Absolutely.
Well, we are getting to the pop quiz round here. And so I just have 3 last questions for you. Are you up for it?
Okay, let's go.
All right. You're doing great. These will be fine. Question number 1 is, what is an action listeners can take today to help them get closer to their dream life and, profitability?
I'm going to go back with what we kind of talked about in here is write down from this day forward, I will own every aspect of my life. And then just own it.
Powerful, simple and powerful. That's great. Question number 2 is, if you could give listeners a gift, like some tangible resource or experience that has changed your life, what would you love to gift the listeners or encourage them to get their hands on?
I would like to just encourage them with the idea that you cannot, I'm going to say it in the negative, that you can't leave a legacy you don't have. You can't give an inheritance you don't have. And so to give what we want to give, we have to have it. We have to own it. So, for example, if I want to leave a legacy of kindness and generosity, and I want that to be kind of what I give to the world, then I have to have owned kindness and generosity up until that point. And so to leave a legacy, to give anything, you have to first have it.
Wow. Yes. Value bombs. I'm loving this. You're leaving a legacy with us today, Michele. The last question is, how can listeners get in touch with you and learn more about the work you do?
Sure. So 2 ways. The first is you can check out my podcast called Profit is a Choice. And that's on all the different podcast places. And the second is my website is scarletthreadconsulting.com. And for your listeners, Hannah, I have a landing page called scarletthreadconsulting.com/dream life, all one word.
Love it. I am writing that in the show notes now so that folks can go and access that. We really appreciate it. Well, keep in mind, listeners, that when someone offers this, gift or for you to take advantage of a resource that they have, it is 100% your choice and your responsibility to continue your education, take action, and definitely, take advantage of what Michele is offering here at scarletthreadconsulting.com/dream life, right?
You got it.
All right, Michele, thank you so much for being here, for helping us take ownership of our profitability and our dream lives today.
Thank you for having me, Hannah.
Of course, I'll be back next week, friends, with another inspiring guest that will help you make your dream life your real life.
You've been learning how to make your dream life your real life with Hannah Hermanson. To get the resources mentioned on today's show and to listen to past episodes, visit www.dreamlifeisreallife.com.